and the biggest dimples you've ever seen. Her and a friend of hers who both spent their master's program in Poe Hall, within months of each other, had been diagnosed with some kind of cancer.
170 and counting, a startling number of people with cancer who've studied or worked in NC State's Poe Hall. All of them sharing their diagnosis with Keely Arthur and the 5 on Your Side team.
5 on Your Side uncovered this survey.
For 5 months, their team has produced more than 30 stories, conducted dozens of interviews, and relentlessly pursued the facts around the discovery of toxic chemicals called PCBs inside Poe Hall.
When I was diagnosed, the doctor couldn't tell me why I was diagnosed or why I had cancer. So I would like to know if maybe it was a cause.
It's the question on the minds of so many in our state and at the university. On the record, we share the story behind the story of this wide-ranging investigation with 5 on Your Side's team. Thank you for joining us for On the Record. I'm Lena Tillett. In a matter of days, we could know more about what was going on inside NC State's Poe Hall. The university is expected to release its investigation into the presence of polychlorinated biphenyls, or PCBs, in the building. When NC State closed Poe Hall after detecting the cancer-causing chemicals last fall, 5 on Your Side began tracking the number of people who worked or studied there who later developed cancer. And this timeline really helps us understand the staggering pace of developments in this story in just over the last 5 months. So in August of last year, an employee who had cancer raised concerns to NC State's Environmental Health and Safety Unit. In October, NC State began testing for PCBs inside Poe Hall. And by November, they announced PCBs were indeed found. Chancellor Woodson then decided to close the building. By December, the university hired Geosyntech Consulting to do more PCB testing. In February of this year, the fallout began. Education faculty passed a vote of no confidence against the chancellor and vice chancellor over their handling of the entire ordeal. And then last month, after a 4-month investigation, 5 on Your Side reported 150 people who worked or studied in the building were diagnosed with cancer. Let's stop here and watch that report.
It's a remarkable reunion. 8 women with 2 things in common: Poe Hall.
We were all students or working there.
Poe Hall was my home base.
And cancer.
Unless you've been through it, you can't even imagine what it's like. It's horrific.
I finished chemo at the end of November of 2023, so just a few months ago, and then I just finished radiation this week.
That's Katie, battling breast cancer, just like Sandy, Tremaine, and Michelle did. Lee was diagnosed with ovarian cancer in 2018. For Anna and Madison, it's lymphoma, both diagnosed in their 20s. That news came for Christy at 22, diagnosed with 2 different cancers within 2 years.
I had already been in Poe for probably about 3 years when they started coming, and first with thyroid cancer my junior year, and then with soft tissue cancer my senior year.
Sandy, Christy, Katie, Michelle, Madison, Anna, Tremaine, and Lee. 8 names in a roll call, now numbering 123 people, all worked or learned at NC State's once busy education and psychology building, Poe Hall, all diagnosed with cancer.
Any cancer patient will tell you about the phone call that came.
Oh, yeah.
It feels like getting another phone call to see the story that said, 99 cases related to Poe Hall.
As we know, people get cancer in large numbers, and we're not talking about NC State as a whole. We're talking about this one building.
Tremaine spent 10 years at Poe Hall. She knew of at least 3 others from the building who also had cancer. And in 2020, she says she notified NC State about a potential pattern.
I brought it up to someone in leadership, someone that I worked with, and just said, hey, with these recent cases, now I'm starting, something just seems weird.
It took 3 more years, 13 cases of cancer, and an employee filing a complaint with the State Department of Labor before NC State tested Poe Hall for PCBs, forever chemicals used in building construction in the mid-20th century. now banned.
I mean, it's a probable carcinogen in humans.
In Poe, that initial testing found levels 38 times higher than what the EPA deems unsafe.
I was not shocked at all. I was just more shocked that it came to light.
For Anna, something clicked.
When I was diagnosed, the doctor couldn't tell me why I was diagnosed or like why I had cancer. So I would like to know if maybe it was a cause.
And yet, when all those Poe Hall people with cancer wrote to NC State, most never heard back. Nothing.
There was no response, not even a thank you for letting us know. You know, we're sorry. We hope you are well.
5 on Your Side has produced 21 stories on Poe Hall since it closed in November, interviewed more than a dozen people on camera and hundreds more off. We filed 12 public records requests, analyzed 223 pages of PCB test results, and earlier this month, we uncovered NC State was no longer participating in an independent investigation into the health issues at Poe Hall, a decision they reversed after our report. With each story, more people diagnosed with cancer came to us. We took it all down and laid it out. Type of cancer, time spent in Poe Hall, ages and years. Of the 123 cases, 4 of every 10 cases were breast cancer, lymphoma, skin cancer, and leukemia, also among the top diagnoses. But is it more than average? We ran the numbers and found in 2022 alone, the rate of diagnosis of breast cancer in Poe Hall was 3 times higher than the expected rate for all of Wake County.
Oh my gosh.
How did this happen? And more important, what's being done? In November, NC State closed Poe Hall. The consulting firm it hired in December continues to test. The university created a Poe Hall updates page, complete with messages from Chancellor Randy Woodson. Yet not once does it mention cancer or the many other serious illnesses connected to PCBs.
Unforgivable, in my opinion.
And you're looking at alumni, you're looking at staff, you're looking at people that you said were important to the university. Okay. Tell us that we are.
If you were them, wouldn't you want direct answers?
Now, in the weeks since, the 5 on Your Side team has recorded roughly 20 more cases. We should note NC State leaders have stressed that as of now, no formal or official connection has been made between the PCBs in Poe Hall and those cancer cases or any others. Joining us now to talk about this investigation is 5 on Your Side reporter Keely Arthur and 5 on Your Side producer Pritchard Strong. We are so grateful you are here. This investigation has been remarkable to watch unfold. Keely, we need to begin with some breaking news now, though. Those women were saying that they wanted answers. They're going to have to wait a little bit longer for them.
That's right. The university has said over and over again that they are unable to really give any health guidance, health information until the building testing is complete. Now, that began earlier this year. We were told last month that the results of that testing would be out by the end of this month, April. Well, now we're hearing that it's not going to be until the end of May, which means it's going to be after the school year is over. And that's very stressful to people. People feel like they've been extremely patient throughout this, and their patience is wearing thin.
Have they explained, or were you able to find out what's the reason behind this delay?
The university has been very vague throughout this process. They basically said that it's because maybe they're testing a little bit longer, but no, they could not give any concrete information nor a concrete updated date as to when the results will be released.
Okay, I know that's going to be frustrating for a lot of people. Pritchard, I want to take a step back now because I really wanted to use this as an opportunity to reflect on how we got here. Again, this is such an expansive investigation. You first learned about something happening within Poe Hall because you got emailed a tip and you had a hunch that it was a big deal. Why?
Yeah, we got an email early the day after the email actually went out. So somebody who I'd been in contact with previously at NC State sent me this email and said, you know, we got this, they're closing the building. It feels like a really big deal. There have been cancer cases in the building at the time. They mentioned 10 that they knew of. So certainly seems significant with a health concern like that. Cases of cancer in the building and you know, kind of a suspicion that there may be a little bit more going on there. So it was early that next morning, I believe it was November 17th, that we started working this, and we were talking early that morning, and deciding that we needed to pursue this and look into it more.
So from the very beginning, you knew that there were some health complications potentially tied to this building?
Potentially.
Keely, a story that you haven't told yet is how the first investigation into Poe Hall began in terms of why they started testing Poe Hall. It's because some brave women came forward. Tell us about that.
Right. You saw in the story that just aired, people for years thought, this is odd. It feels like a lot of people in this building are diagnosed with cancer, but nobody, from what we know, had reported it formally, at least to administration. So what happened in early August of 2023 is a woman with breast cancer wrote on behalf of several other women with breast cancer working inside Poe Hall. These are academics that the university needed to look into it. And she kept emailing. We know from the documents that have been given to us exclusively that the university didn't look at it and go, oh yes, we need to look into it right away. She kept pushing and saying, hey, I know of at least a dozen women with breast cancer or other forms of cancer who are in this building, please look into this. And it was her that pushed them to do the testing, and some of the other women that she mentioned had actually reported to external agencies, the Department of Labor, EPA. That's what really got the ball rolling on all of this.
So it was an all hands on deck kind of approach. They were, dividing and conquering with the different agencies to reach out to.
Yeah, and she's told me on the phone that somebody went up to her and said, hey, you're the person making all this noise. She was brave for doing this, and it wasn't that well received by everyone allegedly at NC State, but we now know that the building did need to be tested because of what was found inside.
So obviously now, Keely, you're reporting 170 cases of cancer in people who studied or worked there connected to this building, but it took you months to get people to trust you, to share the most sensitive, personal, challenging information, their health details. How did you build that trust?
Yeah, Pritchard and I were just talking about how when we first were discussing 10 cases, wow, that's a lot. And it did take months to even get to 10. I think what people were hoping for who had worked in the building, or students who also had cancer, we know of a lot of grad students, they were hoping for the university, they were waiting on the university to see what they were going to do, what guidance they were going to give. The more time went on where the university wasn't speaking, we were still trying to do reports, get as much information out as possible. And with that, we were able to gain trust. Trust from a few people, a few women with breast cancer, a few men of different types of cancer. And then they go, nobody from the university is talking to me. Five on Your Side is talking to us. Let's keep talking to her, because they felt like the more we were able to confirm cases or actually give the viewers a complete picture of the actual health crisis that was going on, the more the university was likely to react. And we did see that happen. We did see the university take some additional steps following our reporting. But yeah, it's been really hard. I think at this point, not a day goes by where I don't talk to somebody with cancer, and it's hard for them. I mean, the situation is stressful. Yeah. A lot of times I'll have an interview set up with somebody and they have to cancel because they need to go to a chemo appointment or they're not feeling well. But it's really just been about being available to listen to these people when they'll tell you the university wasn't.
You've served as a conduit for these people, certainly for the university. Much more with the Five on Your Side team shortly ahead. We are going to have more on NC State's response after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. We want to dive into NC State University's response to these mounting cancer cases that Five on Your Side has been reporting that are potentially connected to Poe Hall. Keely, you were able to sit down with Chancellor Randy Woodson. To his credit, he took your questions and he repeated something often throughout the interview, that they are waiting for the results of this latest, most thorough investigation before they are able to act. I want to play a short clip of that.
In order to be able to fully engage with people about health implications, we have to have questions answered about the environment within the building. And I knew that would take significant testing. And so, yes, I'm very concerned about anyone's health, particularly anyone that's been diagnosed with a serious illness as serious as cancer.
So, Keely, how is that landing with people?
Well, now we know that the testing results are going to be delayed another month. So that's the thing. The university has made the building testing their priority. That's what they're saying. We need to know the full extent of the environment of the building before we can give anyone any response to all these health concerns. People have been waiting for 5 months. By the time the results now are going to be out, it's probably going to be closer to 6 months. And you speak to PCB building experts, this is not the first time experts have gone in and tested a building. Usually those take around 11 weeks. We're far past that. So people are getting very anxious. They were already very antsy earlier on. And not only is it the folks who are saying that they have cancer who want to know what was going on in the building, you have to think about all the students who are going in and out of Poe Hall. It's one of the bigger campus buildings. There's a lot of classes that are seemingly healthy. Same with staff members who were in there for years that are fine. But we know that PCBs can manifest in the body in many different ways. You can get respiratory issues, skin issues, cognitive impairment, tumors, all these different things. So people are sitting there feeling like maybe something's brewing in their body and they're not getting answers. Now, we don't know, again, if anything is, but the fear of the unknown is so present for these people.
Pritchard, let's talk about the PCB testing that has happened within PCB, or Poe Hall, I should say, over the last several months. So a first round of testing came out in February. We know that there was another round, a preliminary round of testing that came out last year that said that the PCB levels that were found in some of the rooms was 38 times higher than what is safe, according to the EPA. So what else are they going to be looking for in this testing?
So the first round of testing, when we spoke to an expert about it, said that this was kind of a basic test. It was kind of a low-level test, not super sensitive, completely appropriate to figure out if there were PCBs in the building, and that's what was happening back in October and November. Move on to what Geosyntec is doing in December when they actually did the more sensitive testing that was a little bit more in depth. They did 67 swipe samples, they did 14 air samples, and they found some PCBs in the air and on surfaces, but not much. I think it was one sample that was over the EPA limits. What they didn't do is bulk sampling, where we saw in October really high levels of PCBs. That was bulk sampling, where they're actually taking a potential source of PCBs and testing it. They didn't do that. Geosyntec didn't do that in December. So what we're looking for coming out of this latest test is that bulk testing. What are they testing exactly? What physical material are they testing? And then for air samples, how many are they testing? One of the experts that Keely spoke with said, you know, you want to have about 30 air tests in a room to really get an idea of what you're dealing with, what's in that air. And in Geosyntec's December testing, they only did about 14 samples throughout the entire 7th-floor building. So we're looking for that to be much more in depth. Also with the HVAC on, it changes the environment because with the HVAC system being a potential source, you've got that air moving now. And so where do those levels come in now that the HVAC is on? And hopefully they're doing more in-depth testing throughout the building. Really quickly, Chancellor Woodson said that there was no federal regulation that told them that he had to close the building. What does the government say about this? So there's not necessarily a mandate to test in any particular situation. There is a mandate to contact the EPA and mitigate and remove PCBs if they are discovered. Gotcha. That is something that, you know, once the testing is done and they've determined if and where any PCBs are, they will have to go through the EPA to do that mitigation and removal. Some of those are changing. EPA released some new guidelines recently that NC State says they're aware of. They're looking at policies and trying to update that as best they can. Okay, much more with the 5 on Your Side team after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. We're here with the 5 on Your Side team discussing their big investigation into cancer cases potentially connected to toxic chemicals discovered in Poe Hall. Keely, obviously the question that people have, is this a verifiable cancer cluster in Poe Hall? That is something I talked to a Harvard professor who is a top expert on PCBs. He said that is incredibly difficult to determine. How are people feeling about that question ever being answered?
You'll talk to some people who are like, it'll never happen. Some people are more hopeful. And nobody wanted any of this to happen. But I think a lot of people who are sick always wondered why. When we talk to people with cancer, they tell us a lot of times that they had no family history or nothing that would give them any idea that this would ever happen to them. So they always wondered why, and they feel like this could be an answer to that. Figuring out a cancer cluster is something that the CDC has to do, but we have taken as many cases down and tried to do some mathematical work to see, as we're reporting this, hey, is this a statistical anomaly? It sounds like a very big number, 170, but as we know, a lot of people do get cancer, unfortunately. So,
and you were able to compare the cancer rate for Wake County compared to the rate within Poe Hall.
Yeah, we took, because we have the years in which people were diagnosed, we compared that to the 2022 rate of diagnosis for breast cancer in Wake County. And we found that in Poe, at least just with the cases being reported to us by individuals, that it was 3 times the rate of the county. So you look at that, and I talked to Herrick as well, the PCB expert from Harvard. He said, yeah, you look at all this information, it definitely needs to be investigated. Is this a cancer cluster?
Ultimately, the federal government will be investigating this, right, Pritchard?
NIOSH, they're going to be relying on some test results to come back before they can kind of do that health survey and kind of start figuring out what the health impact may have been based on the environment that's in the building.
Your story has been shared now by NBC Nightly News, People Magazine, USA Today. It has really gone national at this point, and that has also helped you in your reporting. People who maybe went to NC State, who don't live in this area, who are now learning about these cases.
That's right. A chief complaint from people who worked or studied in Poe Hall and were no longer in the building at the time of the closure is they never received any notification from NC State. Unless you were a student who had class in that building or working in that building in November of 2023 when it closed, you did not get an official notification from the university. We have a lot of people who are living in different parts of the country now who say they've been reached out to by the university to donate money to NC State, but have not received any notification about the situation going on in Poe Hall while they're battling things like brain cancer and other things. One of the things that you mentioned by it going national and in some cases international is that people as far as New Mexico have reached out and said, hey, I too have breast cancer, and breast cancer is by far and large the most common diagnosis that we're getting.
I only have 15 seconds for you, Pritchard, to end this for us. Final thoughts. This is a humbling investigation. You're talking about people's health here.
Absolutely, it is. I mean, and it's a big deal considering the number of people who have been through that building over the years and how long this investigation's already gone on and how long it'll continue to go on. So that's certainly something we're going to continue to look into and follow.
You think people are going to sue? Has anyone already filed a lawsuit?
Yeah, I don't think that a lot of that has been filed yet, but every time that I speak to someone with cancer or an illness, they either have a lawyer or they are wondering if anyone is lawyered up.
Keely, Arthur, Pritchard Strong, thank you so much. You can find much more on Poe Hall by going to WRAL.com. Have a great night.